Hello everybody and welcome back to my workshop. Today we're going to have a look at using the SM-Modellbau microvario with TEK nozzle or total energy vario with your Jeti radio. This is the SM-Modellbau's microvario, and a diddy little thing it is too. So what we're going to look at in this video is what is a total energy vario and why you might want it, why you might want to choose this instead of Jeti's own solution for it, and how to make it work with your Jeti radio, because if you just plug it in as it is, it won't work. So what is a total energy vario? Well, as you know, a vario tells you if you're going up or down. But if you are flying at a very steep angle over your head, or you're at some distance away, it can be very difficult to tell, for example, if you're flying a nice smooth turn, or if you're sort of diving and zooming a bit in your turns. And a standard vario will tell you you're going up, you're going down, and therefore give you very false indications of where the center of the thermal is, or where the best lift in that thermal is. And also, if you're zooming along with a bit of speed and you gently ease up, a standard vario will tell you you've got a fantastic rate of climb. But if you thought you were just coming into a thermal, now you don't know, because it's just what you might call an elevator thermal. You've pulled back on the elevator, and the same is true for pushing the nose down. A total energy vario uses airspeed to compensate for what the vario is telling you. So basically it takes your two energies of height and speed and adds them together to get the total. And then it works out if you really are losing energy or not. In order to do that, you need more than just the little vario. You need airspeed. Now you can do this with Jeti. You can get their airspeed sensor and fit the pitot probe into the tail fin. And then in the software there is a compensation factor, some percentage, which you have to find out by trial and error and vary the compensation factor and get it to effectively act electronically as a total energy vario for you. So why would you choose this one over Jeti? Well, Jeti only makes a straight pitot probe, which would therefore have to be installed somewhere facing forward in the fin or out in the wing. And I've got several models in which access into the fin just is not possible. So I could not fit that. And that's where the SM-Modellbau one comes in rather handy. Let's have a look at the two nozzles you can choose. Here is one fitted to the fin. This is a lovely TEK Ash 26, and there's the nozzle. It's in the fin, and a Jeti nozzle would kind of look like that, pointing forward. You can see the SM-Modellbau one is bent at 90 degrees and has this little doofer on the end of it. So, okay, yep, you could just fit a Jeti nozzle there and find from trial and error your compensation factor electronically. But here I have a multiplex or tangent Alpina 5001, and access into the fin just isn't possible. But what you can do is use SM-Modellbau's straight TEK probe. As you can see here, comes up straight out of the center of the model. It's not angled like the one on the fin, and there's the little doofer on the end. One other advantage of these is that they are removable. So it just comes out. You see there's a little bit of silicon tube there, which when you put it into place, make sure it's actually angled into the airstream so it can read it. And then you can just push a little bit of silicon down over the mounting bit. And the same is true for the one on the tail fin. You can just remove it, and that makes it far less prone to damage. If it wasn't for the compensation here, then there's no great advantage to using the SM-Modellbau microvario just in place of a Jeti vario. Well, none that I can see. Okay, so you've decided you want one of these. What do you get? Well, you have to order 3 components. First of all, the microvario itself. Then you want the special airspeed nozzle. You order a straight one or the angled one. And you'll want the mounting kit, which basically is this little part here and 2.5 meters of the hose to connect from the airspeed pitot or TEK nozzle up to here. You can separately buy more hose, but 2.5 meters between the TEK nozzle and the vario should cover all but the very, very biggest of gliders. When you get this in the holder, you'll check that the holes at each end are very slightly different in size, and only one of them is the right size for the TEK nozzle. So you mount that into your model with the hole for the TEK nozzle on the outside, and then on the other hole you struggle to push in the end of the Teflon tube. What you do have to do is stretch it a bit to make it a little bit thinner to actually get it into there, and then use one of the little silicone tubes which you've already pushed onto it to push up and hold it firmly into place. Okay. You will also need your Jeti USB dongle. Now you're going to have to use the computer really, because unless you speak German, you're a bit stuffed here because all the instructions are in German. I will show you how to get this extensive manual in English. The microvario comes enabled for the Graupner hot system, but it can cope with just about any system, including Jeti. There's 2 ways of switching it over to Jeti. One of them involves plugging this cable into a receiver channel and flicking the channel and watching light flashing, and the other one is just plugged into the computer, which you're going to have to do anyway really to check for updates and to go looking for the manual, so it's much easier, plus you can change lots more settings. You'll notice that it has 2 cables and plugs coming out of it. This one here, come on, play. I remove it because it's not really relevant to the Jeti system. It plugs into a channel on the receiver and allows you to switch it between reporting maximum values, minimum values, or current live values. But far better to use your Jeti transmitter software to tell you what you want, not this. Unplugged it, removed that cable, plugged it back in. Now we're ready to go to the computer and get it all set up. Okay, here we are at SM-Modellbau's website, sm-modellbau.de. And the first thing you want to do is order the parts. So as you can see, they make various things, and what we're looking for is the microvario. So we click on microvario, it lists a few things. Let's click on the microvario, and here we are. So there's the little beastie for you to order. Incidentally, especially if you're outside the EU, do register first, and then you, seeing your country, you can get the relevant price without VAT or sales tax, if you like, because these include the German sales tax. The other things you can order are your nozzle holder and the nozzle. So just click on one of them because it all comes up in one page. Order the angled one, order the straight one, or order the nozzle holder with hoses. So you want 1 microvario, 1 of the nozzles, and 1 nozzle holder with hoses. The microvario tool. This is the software from SM-Modellbau for your PC that's specific to the microvario and allows you to change what type of radio it's operating with, what telemetry it will send, what language it's using, etc. So you click on that, download it, and we'll have a look at a moment at what you get for it. And the next thing you'll want is to go to the side box with download, go to manuals, and come down here to where we have the SM-Manual microvario. Don't click on that one because you'll just get the German manual. Come over to this box here that says many thanks to Richard Whitehead. Click on the 3 arrows and that will take you to this little website here, because a chap called Richard Whitehead has very kindly translated some of the SM-Modellbau manuals, and the one you want here is the microvario instructions, which mine was a little bit slow to download, but here it is, and there you are, one full set of instructions in English. Now a lot of it's not relevant to you because it covers other radio systems as well as Jeti, and some of the stuff it talks about for Jeti, of course, is really more relevant to older style with Jeti box and using alarms that come from the sensor rather than alarms in your transmitter, so you can pretty much ignore that sort of part of it. Here is the SM-Modellbau microvario tool. If it doesn't find the port that your USB dongle is connected to, or it says nothing connected, make sure you drop in here and select whichever one says your USB serial port. Usually like this, it just offers the one. If it's not offering any of them, press the COM port scan and it should then find it, and you open up the drop down box and there you go. You can go to info and select English as the language. Live view you don't really need, and I'm not going to power up the microvario separately. Update, but of course you would need to connect first. So let's connect the microvario up to this. We need to connect the microvario to the dongle. Do not plug it in first, as I'm doing now, and then press the connect button, because it just will not find it. So the microvario is plugged in, its little red LED is flashing, but the software will never find it. So I'll just stop it there. I'll disconnect it. Press the connect button first, then plug in the microvario, and there we go, found it straight away. Right, let's have a look at your settings. Language, German. I want it in English. Now, these items here are of no great interest to me because I will be doing things like those in the Jeti Vario software. I don't need a change in the vario factor. I'm going to change the vario filter to medium. The instructions do say if you use fast it can be a bit jittery on the data, so I'll use medium. Altitude soft 0 on. Again, have a good read of the instructions to find out what that does. I'm going to switch it off for me, and min max with receiver I don't need. Here's the important one. Change it to Jeti EX telemetry selection. Fixed serial number, it doesn't really matter unless you're plugging in all sorts of multiple microvarios. Telemetry alarms, I'm not going to use them because I will use the software in the Jeti transmitter. I don't want the sensor itself trying to telemetry alarms to me. And then here are all the Jeti EX values that it's going to send. By default, it's going to send the total energy vario. So we can't switch that one on or off. You can switch on or off all these others. Do I want them? Do I want my altitude over the ground? I do. Do I want altitude gain? I'm not interested in that. I don't want receiver voltage because Jeti receiver will tell me that anyway. I'm not interested in the air pressure or the internal temperature of the sensor. I don't want the acceleration in any of the axes. As it happens, I'm using an assist receiver with this, which will tell me those anyway, but if you wanted to find what your G loads were, depending on the way you've mounted it, you can have those. I don't need it to tell me the receiver channel that's being used for that one wire switching. I do want the vario, and I do want the speed. So by switching these off, we've taken that load off the telemetry channel. It's just not going to send them, they're not going to appear. So when we plug it into the receiver and we look at sensors and logging, we should see the microvario, and it will be sending values 1, 2, 11 and 12. Okay, now what I need to do is press this big red button here to transfer these changed settings to the vario sensor itself. So press that. It tells us up here, settings set successfully. This button here would load the settings from microvario, so if you plugged in a different one, you could press that and bring up its values. You can save all these settings to a file and load settings from that file or another file. It's very useful if you've bought a batch of them and you want to set them all up the same way. Set up one of them, save the settings to a file, connect another one, load the settings from a file, transfer the changed settings. Plug in another one, load the settings from a file, transfer the changed settings, and so on. Okay, so now we have a microvario that's ready to use. Well, we're at the model and we've plugged the microvario into the receiver, and now it's an EX telemetry, not an EX bus. So it can be plugged into the EXT socket or any of the expander sockets which you've set as Jeti box/sensor, not X bus. It should be finding it already, so we go down here into sensors and logging setup, and there it is, the MI vario. Why it calls it MI vario, I don't know. And we should have 4 values, being 1 to 11 and 12, and there they are. Remember, we chose only those values to be transmitted, so we're not loading up telemetry system with stuff we don't need. And so we've got 2 different varios running. We've got the total energy vario and a standard vario, and you can choose between them, as we shall see in the vario software. We're also getting, of course, very importantly, the altitude and the speed. As you can see, we can choose the units for the vario. I'm choosing feet per second because that's what I use in the UK. Sadly, we're unable to choose the units for the speed. It's fixed at kilometers an hour. But if you desperately need it to be in miles an hour on a readout or voice output, you can use Dave McQueenie's wonderful virtual sensor extended functions to do that for you. It's a Lua app. Okay, so we have the values coming through. Now let's go to Vario, the Vario software. Let's switch it on. It's an EX value. And to start with, I'll simply enable it. Come down to the EX parameter and choose what you want. Now notice we can choose the total energy vario or standard vario. And the whole point of this was the total energy vario. And I'll show you what you can do with the switch. So if we come up here to the switch, suppose you want to compare the total energy vario with a standard vario. Well, you can do it. Come in here, I'll set it to a 2-position switch. So I've got switch SF there, okay? And with switch SF in that position or that position, you can see this one comes to the screen we've already set up. So in the other position, I will set it, enable it, come down, EX parameter. This one, I'm going to go for the standard vario. And again, I would set up my dead zones in range. But now, if I operate the switch, watch it change between standard vario and total energy vario. So if you really want to play around with listening to what the difference is between them in flight, you can do so. I just go straight to the TEK vario because I find it makes such an improvement to working out what's going on. But there is a switch I do use. I'll come back up, come back up to it, switch SF, I'll clear that out, and I'm going to operate the throttle stick, obviously for an electric powered glider. Yep, say proportional, I'll give it a bit of open throttle, set that as the switch point, it's off below it, on above it, that's okay. When the throttle's open, I want it disabled. When the throttle's closed, I want it enabled. The idea being that once I've come down to lowish altitude and I want to open up the throttle and go back up, the moment I open up the throttle past that switching point, the vario will shut up. So it's not going to be screaming, beeping at me during the climb. It means I can leave all my volume settings exactly as they were, and when I get to the top of the climb, pull the throttle back, the vario will come back on at the previously set volumes. So there you have it, a very handy telemetry sensor to have, and some hints on how I use them. So do have fun with that, folks.